Hey, welcome back to the channel. Back after a couple weeks off, had a pretty mild case of COVID, which I came down with right after my last race that I recorded. And I'm here with something different from my usual ZRL racing. This is the HERD's Omnium race, which is a series of 6 races over 2 days. Each race being a little different. So the first race on Saturday was they called a sprint race, about 11 kilometers, first cross the line. Second race was a hill climb, and the third was a individual time trial. The Sunday first race was a points race with 8 sprints for points in it. The second one was a really short individual time trial. And the third race was a bit longer scratch race, so first across the line. So I'll go over each of those in a bit more detail as each race comes along. Alright, here we are for stage 1. It's the Watopia flat route, 10.8 kilometers, 54 meters of elevation gain. Pretty basic. And we're going to start off, and it's a typical start. The rate powers up pretty good, and then we get going. Only a couple riders get dropped from the beginning. So the difference between this race, or this series, and the last one that I did was the last one was 4 stages for general classification. So the overall series was decided upon your total time for all stages combined. So you had to go as fast as you possibly could for each stage. This series is based on points. So this being basically a scratch race, first place finisher gets 50 points, second 49, 48, 47, so on. And the different types of races award the points differently, and I'll explain each of those when we get to those. But this one is just first cross the line gets 50 points. And so the best you can do for the series being 6 races is if you win all 6 races, you get 300 points. I'm just speeding it up here because there's nothing super interesting going on, and I don't want this video to be 3 hours long. There are a lot of herd riders in this one, which is great to see. I don't think there's anybody in these races that I've actually raced with or against before. The start of each race was approximately 45 minutes after the previous race. So depending on how long the race took, that gave you more or less of a break. So this wasn't a super long race, so we had a pretty good break in between, but I found it important to just keep the legs spinning, stay warm, not tighten up at all, keep taking in fluids. I was a bit surprised here because I knew there'd be a little bit of a surge here, but I didn't think it'd be as big of a push as there was. Yeah, some of the people at the front, they're doing like 6-7 watts a kilo here. I'm starting to realize it, so I'm starting to push a bit harder, make sure I don't get caught behind a split, but I also don't want to put in too big of an effort either, trying to save everything I can since we're doing 3 races today. But it did end up splitting the group. We're like 40 riders currently, and you'll see that number will drop down as this after we get through this gravel section here. just speed it up again. It's nothing too interesting happening. There you can see the group's down to 24 in the lead group, and there's a falling group of 14 about 9 seconds back. And then we just dropped another guy, so down to 23 here. It's just a steady little false flat go through. Trying to sit in the draft as much as I can. The pack dynamics 4 is a little different, but I always have trouble with surging through. I tend to move up, and then I don't get off the power quick enough. End up at the front and then roll around to the back again. So I'm trying to work on doing better with that. It's definitely a skill in Zwift. Here though, I've surged to the front to put a bit of power down on that slightly increased hill. Then I can just drift back. Now we're catching riders from the B race that started ahead of us. Again, these sprint segments in this race doesn't have any meaning, so there's no point in going for it. Just want to stick with the pack. Now here's the expected location where attacks are going to start happening. We're only 2.4 kilometers left. This is a decent length of a climb, so if you can really push it, you can break the group apart, which is what's happening here. Again, I'm trying not to lead it out, but I'm also trying to stay as close to the front as I can. From this point, like a group of 5 to 10 riders would easily stay away from the rest of the group. Got rolling hills coming up. So I'm easing off a bit here, let some people behind me take the wind and closest gap down, which we do. You can see that there's kind of a gap behind me, so it looks like about a group of 12 in the lead now. That's the last of the rollers. Now it's time to start thinking about positioning for the sprint here. You definitely want to be in the draft. Group of 12, you can pretty much stay at the back of it. My plan going in was to really be at full power with 300 meters to go. The nice thing is here there's actually a sign on the side of the road showing you where 300 meters is. Unfortunately, being a bigger rider, sometimes I just, no matter how easy I go, I roll to the front on these descents. So I'm doing like 1.5 watts per kilo here, and I'm still kind of gonna end up rolling to the front. And the trick is to get back on the power in time to stay with the group. And I see somebody's attacking a bit early, so I'm starting to go. There's 300 meters, and it's full out here. I'm really trying to catch the ATP rider here, but my legs are starting to go, and luckily I just hold off the Rhino rider for second place. So here's the standings after race 1. So Enjoy the Suffering's got 50 points. I have 49. Even Johansson, 48. And then all the way down. So after almost 30 minutes since the last race, keeping warm, time for a quick bike change to a lightweight climbing setup. And then here we are, just into the race. This race was a climbing race, so only this climbing segment is what counts. We actually had about 2.5 kilometer lead into this, but it didn't matter what pace you went. There's no drafting on this one, so it didn't matter if you were in a group. This is where the time segment started. So it's 2.4 kilometers, about 120 meters of elevation gain, average gradient 4.3%. Based on what I saw from earlier time zones, I figured about a 7-minute time is what I was aiming for. Fastest guys were a little quicker than that. Being a bigger rider, this is probably the toughest race. I thought it was going to be the toughest race for me to get a good result on. So I'm just going as hard as I can for 7 minutes. Unfortunately, my 5-minute power is not my strength. Raw power, it's good, but at a watts per kilo, it's kind of below average. So I'm just going as hard as I can up this climb. And I'll just let it play out at a little bit quicker pace here. Okay, just coming up for the finish here. And crossing the line, I'm getting a 7:03.1 seconds, which is just about dead on with what I was aiming for. And then after this, just cruise down. So I ended up with 5th overall. The guy in 1st and the guy in 3rd actually weren't competing in this series. So after 2 events, the standings show that I have the lead, but with some really close racing going on behind me. So on to race 3. After a fairly decent break, another bike change to a TT bike. This is an individual time trial, no drafting. Course is 16.1 kilometers. I thought that it was fairly flat, but it turns out it isn't. There's actually kind of a couple of decent climbs in here. The second one, the longer one, being towards the latter half of the race. So I'm just going to play this on my fastest speed here because it's a fairly long race. Okay, here I am coming into the finish. I've passed a few riders. I think I'm doing pretty good here. Possibly have the win is what I'm thinking in my head. And then at the time I was the fastest, but gotta wait for the results, and two guys went faster than me. So made the standings at the end of day 1 interesting, very close racing. Just got the lead by 1 point, so to make for some exciting racing on day 2. Back for day 2, race number 4. This is a points race with sprints. 8 laps of the downtown Dolphin circuit, which is 1.9 kilometers each lap, 8 meters elevation. The segment that counts is about 200 meters long at 2% average gradient, so most of the elevation is all in that. So each time through, its fastest through on that lap gets the points, 50 points, 49, 48, etc. 8 times of that, the person with the most points at the end wins the race and gets 50 points towards their total standings. I checked out my competition on Swift Power. Thought I would have pretty good odds of doing okay in this one. I haven't really been working on my sprinting, but I've got really good 1 minute power. There were some guys though with better 15-second power watts per kilo wise, so I knew this was going to be a really tough race. So Really the point is to stick with the largest group because there is draft here. So of course drafting in a bigger group makes it easier to go faster. So that was just my strategy. Stay with the lead group and try and go as hard as I can each sprint. You can see our group has 34 riders. There are 42 that started, so I don't know why people have dropped off already. Oh no, 36 riders. So here we're coming up to the first sprint. We make this left turn, and then a right, and the segment starts immediately after this right segment, so right turn, so powering up right now. I was a little slow on that one, getting going, but still got the fourth fastest on that lap. Now we basically have 1.7 kilometers to recover and try and get my breath back, get the heart rate down. Going into the second sprint now. Lead group's down to 27. And this one I get a better ramp up into it, start my drive a little sooner, and I actually get second fastest on this lap. Helps starting further back. Now I've got all these riders to draft through. B group's down now to 20 riders. This one I also get a good sprint and end up second fastest on this lap as well. But I'm really gasping for air here. I just remember thinking I was not going to be able to recover. Briefly thought about actually getting off the bike and quitting the race. But I sucked it up and kept going. This lap, our group is looking like there's 24 riders in it, but I think we picked up a few of the B riders that had dropped off and the race that started ahead of us. I'm just really trying to hang on at this point and recover from that last sprint. I don't even think I got in the top 10 times on this one, so this was a weaker one for me. And I'm feeling a little more recovered here. Get a good start to my sprint. I'm in a better position within the pack. Pretty decent power, and I managed to get to the 6th fastest on this lap. Going forward again. Decent position. Our lead group is still about 20 riders here, so getting some good draft from these guys, and managed to get 5th fastest on this lap, or this sprint. coming into the second to last sprint here. Still got something in my legs, not a lot. Still keeping good position, getting good draft off these guys, and managed to squeak out 6th fastest on this lap. Last lap and really struggling to put the power down. See, I'm not even getting into the orange numbers. Oh, just getting into the orange numbers now. Really struggling to keep the power up. Legs are just beat at this point. I do manage to get the 10th fastest. And then at this point I'm thinking about in the rules, if there's a tie for points, then the tiebreaker is done on finishing position. So I'm thinking just keep pushing a little bit, try and get towards the front of this group. Not going to have anything for a final sprint, but just try and keep my finishing position as high as I can here. I have no idea how well I've done at this point, but hoping that I've done enough to maybe a top 5 finish. I know that a couple of guys competing with me in the top 5 classification did really well in this, so I was just hoping I didn't get knocked too far down the ladder. So there's results. I ended up getting fourth in this one. The first and second place guy, they took the fastest lap, alternating between them. So here you see I've actually dropped out of first place, but it's still ridiculously close here going into race 5. Now race 5 is one that I think I could do really well on. It's a short individual time trial. Mass start though, but there's no drafting. I've done this one as an individual time trial before, and my fastest time on it was like 4 minutes 19 seconds. when I checked the other zones, time zones, fastest people seem to be doing it around a little over 5 minutes. So my goal here was to shoot for 5 minutes. I figured I could do that with the amount of fatigue that was in my legs. And here we're off. The time segment doesn't start right away. You get a few hundred meters here to get up to speed before the timing starts. So I'm not pushing it too hard at this point. And then also realizing I don't have my sauce program running for all my stats. There's no point in sitting back on this one because there's no drafting. So here the timing starts here now. So now I start to put the power down, and my goal was to average 400 watts or higher. So pretty close to 4 watts a kilo is what I was aiming for. And being a bigger guy and with good high power, I'm just trying to take advantage here on the flat part, get as much of a lead as I can, because there is a steep ramp. It really slows me down a lot more than it does the lighter guys. So I figured that if I was in the lead still at that point, then I'd have a good chance of winning this one. So here I am coming into that ramp. It's actually a two-part. There's this brief short part here. It's not too steep, flattens out, and then the second part gets quite a bit steeper. I think it hits 9%. Now here I'm feeling pretty good. I know that there's just some rollers here, and I just got to keep my power up as long as my legs don't give out. I think I've got it at this point. Okay, coming into the last 300 meters here. I've still got a 4-second gap. My average power 418 watts, which is right on my target. And just easing up towards the end because I don't really need to beat them by a lot. I just had to finish first. So that's first place. Good lead on that one. I was really happy with this. Now we get a nice long break before the next race. And in the standings, I managed to take over first place again, but it's still really tight. I've only got a 3-point lead over second and just 9 points between first and fifth. Now I had a nice long break after that last race, almost 40 minutes. So I actually got off the bike, changed my shirt, got some food, some hydration, and then got back on about 10 minutes before this race to just warm the legs up again. So this is a scratch race. Whoever across the line first wins. 26.1 kilometers, 145 meters of elevation gain. We start with a hill climb that goes up through the actual start-finish line, and we actually have to finish on that same hill. And then there's a small climb kind of in the middle over the aqueduct where the group could break apart there. So my goal is to just stick with the lead group here and really keep an eye on, I was really watching the 2 ATP riders that were in second and third because they're the closest to me in the standings. So my goal is just to kind of stick with them if I possibly could. I have no idea what my legs are like for this and what other people's legs are going to be like for the finish of this. As you can see, I got those 2 ATP riders right there that I've been following. Not too concerned about people going out off the front here because we do have a good length downhill after we crest the hill where the main pack should catch up to a smaller group. Now here I see that those 2 ATP riders are pushing ahead, so I'm upping my effort to make sure I stay with this group. I don't want to be stuck behind a split. So here I catch back up to them so I can ease off a bit. Now here I see one of the other HERD riders pushing hard across the top, as we hit the descent. I was kind of wondering at the time if there's some communication going on with some of the other riders and they plan to get this little break ahead. But they're a little further behind me in the standing, so I was more concerned with sticking with these two ATP riders. At this point, that group's got a 7-second gap, so the ATP riders kind of look like they're trying to bridge across. So I jump up on their wheel, and we end up bringing the rest of the pack of 13, 14 of us back up, and the whole group reforms back into a group of 20-ish riders. Here's another spot where a split could occur. It's kind of a series of these short ramps, go up to like 4 or 5% with little flat sections in between. So just got to be on top of the power going up all of these, make sure there's no split, or you don't get caught behind the split anyways. Now from here I'm going to speed it up even more because it's pretty much flat all the way to that hill that we did at the start. So I just have to keep an eye on things, make sure that there's no large breakaway group that tries to split off. But with the 20 of us here, it's kind of it's really tough to kind of split off and try and break away from this group. Now we're starting that final climb. Groups all together. I think we may even have picked up a couple of B riders, but the other thing is there's some riders in the race that aren't actually doing the series. So, my strategy here is still just to watch these two ATP riders. I'm right behind one of them now. I do know that since I have a 3-point lead, if I can finish third in this race, that nobody can beat me no matter who's ahead of me. So that's also in the back of my mind. But you can see the pace is harder than the first time we went up. Groups really spread out. All of the top 5 riders in the overall standings are all in this lead group here. At this point it flattens out a bit, and I decide to just keep pushing, keeping the power on, really forcing the group to stick with me. I know it gets steeper here, so I'm just trying to make everybody hurt as much as possible. It's been 6 races. My legs are tired, so I know everybody else's are, but at this point I'm just kind of betting on my fitness to get me through this one. Taking a big gamble to just push as hard as I can without blowing up and force everybody to keep up with me or try and pass me. I can see by the times on the left there's now only 7 riders that are within a second of me on the road. So I'm just trying to keep it going. It's a little flatter here. And I'll try and surge again when I get around this corner. The guy who just passed me, I don't even think he was in this series, so I don't really care. The guys that I'm most concerned about are the ones that are like right behind me at this point. The guy who just passed me, also I don't think is in the series. Bowser, who's ahead of me by a couple spots at this point, he was in 4th or 5th at the start of this race, so I wasn't that concerned. He wasn't going to get enough points to catch me. The guy directly in front of me, Mulet or Moulet, whatever it is, he was in 3rd at the start of the day, I think, so I pushed to get past him. At this point, I'm still kind of thinking I might get a podium, but everybody in front of me is still pushing hard too, so unfortunately I end up having to settle for 4th, but that's just fine for me. That's all I need to wrap up the series. So that's it, last race done, and I finished 4th on the day, which is good. I was a bit worried about this one because quite a bit of climbing, and I'm pretty heavy. Not the best climber, but I do okay. And the final standings. Ended up winning it, tied for 2nd behind me. It's great to see a bunch of HERD riders in this. This was a really fun series, super tight competition. Really hurt a lot, but I will probably come back and do it again next year.